Hey there, everybody. It's Friday night, so that means it is time for Explain Yourself. I'm Benjamin Morse, and we're here tonight with some great creators to talk about some campaigns that are live now that I think you want to check out. We're going to get to learn about their campaigns, about the stories they're trying to tell, and should be a lot of fun. So I'm going to bring everybody in. First, we have CJ Hudson, who has a three-shot comic, Granite, Noir, and Endless Hunt, which is live now on Kickstarter with 3 days to go, and John Kratky, who has Home Free 1 through 4, which is on Kickstarter as well, with 5 days to go. Guys, thanks for coming.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So some really cool books out there. A lot of campaigns are wrapping up right now. So I guess it's kind of a crowded market right now with everybody's campaigns going through. But both your campaigns, I think Home Free has met its goal, just about.
Yeah.
And three one shot comics has just a little bit to go. Hopefully we'll get there pretty soon. But again, let's I think we'll just jump right into it, and we'll start with CJ. If you want to present your screen and show us show us your campaign and tell us about these 3 one-shot comics, and just give us the elevator pitch and kind of show us what's cool about this.
Let's do it. Figure this out here. Share screen. And can you see my screen?
Not quite yet. It should. If you hit present, it'll.
Oh, there we go. And then I got
to come up there, and then I can let it let it in like it's a person. There we go. All right, it's up now.
There we go. Right on. Yeah. So 3 one-shot comics, Granite, Noir, Endless Hunt. This is actually through Devin Arscott's publishing arm, Epic Fantasy. And as you can see here, we are really, really close to hitting goal. Just need $399. We don't have a lot of time left, but we've had a really good rally the last 2 days. Like I thought we were pretty done for, and we were already making plans to look at relaunching, but the community's really rallied behind this. So definitely appreciate that. So in terms of what we got, it's like Ben said, we have 3 singular one-shot comics that hopefully will expand into other series later on. So 2 superhero books and 1 fantasy book. So first one is Endless Hunt. I wrote this, and it has art by Rio Burton. She did the art and the coloring internally, or the interior art, and really kind of a stereotypical fantasy story. You would think at first where a warrior king is searching for his lost love, but ultimately he remembers that he never really lost her at all, is kind of the line that I've been using. So there's a lot of twists and turns throughout the story that kind of comes to a resolution at the end. And it really has killer art by Rio Burton, who's done As of the Barbed. She just completed Harpy of the West, which was a really good comic that she just did with her husband. So yeah, had a lot of fun working on this with Rio. And then the other one that I wrote is Granite, which is my first time doing a superhero book. And Fritz Cassius did the interior art, and Sarah Cuervo did the colors. And basically this is for fans of She-Hulk, or any heavy superhero. This is kind of a hard-living, hard-drinking superhero that's really addicted to fame, but then her powers start to fail her, and she has to learn to live outside of the limelight. And then Noir is the other title. Don't want to take too much away from Devin's title, but this is a street-level type superhero, very much in the vein of kind of like a Batman or a Moon Knight. And one thing that we thought was really cool, well, I don't know. We thought it was fun, was that we put a backup feature in this with Granite. So there's a 6-page backup feature that's totally separate from the main story that we have here. So we thought that would be kind of fun to do. They don't interact, but we're kind of harkens back to the old like Marvel 2-in-1 or the old backup features that you probably remember from back in the day. And then here's some page previews. Like I said, Sarah's really great colorist, and Fritz has done some superhero work in the past, so he's definitely knows what he's doing.
Yeah, these pages look great. Absolutely.
Yeah, not for. I just passed through a page that's probably not for kids, so all of these books are for mature readers. But I would say there are books. They're not super sexy or anything like that. But there's some mature content, some swearing, and maybe a little bit of nudity. And here's some uncolored pages that I have right now, and that just didn't get colored quite yet, but they're in the process. So this guy, Thrash, is one of our villains. He's right out of the 90s. I really just wanted like a sweet costume with a very 90s vibe for the villain. Praying somebody cosplays as this guy someday because I think it would be awesome. And then here's the backup feature. We showed a couple pages of this. This is actually Granite journeying to the underworld and battling Hades. So a pretty fun little backup feature that we included in the back of Noir. And then here's some pages of Endless Hunt too with Rio. And then we'll get into Noir here as well. And just a really fun looking superhero book that Devin created here. So hopeful that we could actually cross our characters over at some point after we do a mini series proper, get through the one shots, do a mini series, and then hopefully do a little crossover story. We thought would be a really good time. And then here's the covers. So I showed you all the standard edition covers. And then we have a lot of variants too. So those are all the standards. And then Liana Kangas did a variant. Luana Vecchio did a variant for Endless Hunt. Here's a mature one from Flops that I'll go through. And Ben Flores did one as well. And then he also did a mature variant. And here's another one of Noir from Bugrabera. And that's it. And then we just go into the team. But any questions I can help answer on these books? We're getting really close to goal, like I said, and I think we can get there. And again, appreciate all the support from the community the last couple of days. It's been really outstanding.
Yeah, it's awesome to see that. I have a quick question. So, Granite seems like kind of not necessarily an origin story, but certainly like the introduction to Granite. Are Endless Hunt and Noir like similarly like you can just pick up? There's pretty much no huge explanation needed. They're like the first story of each of these characters.
Yeah, so Endless Hunt may or may not continue. It's kind of a one and done fantasy story. I think the world is really fun and interesting, so maybe Rio and I would go back and tell more stories there. But Granite, definitely not picking up from an origin perspective. Been around for a long time, and it's so very easy to, I think, kind of get into because you can kind of figure out what her origin is. And the same thing with Noir. Both heroes have been around for a while, and we don't have to dig into a lot of the back history. We just wanted to kind of plop readers right into the thick of it.
Yeah, but these are definitely like issue one of
Oh yeah,
basically.
yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, these are standalone type stories, just singular, that hopefully would lead into another mini series that would be separate. So you wouldn't read this and be like, "Ah, shit," like I want the rest of this mini, kind of a one and done.
Yeah, and I love the design you have on this headline image. That's just really cool, very pulpy, and just gets into the how much fun it is to have like just I think in a lot of ways I've done and seen so many comics in the last few years that are crime or horror or western, which is awesome that we have so many genres out there on Kickstarter and indie comics in general. But as I've sat down and like been reading other creators like superhero stuff, I realized how much fun it was just to have all these people making up new superheroes, new universes. It reminds me so much of being a kid in the 90s, and it was like, oh, there's a Malibu universe. There's obviously Image. There's just all this extra stuff. It always felt like there was something new coming along. So I think it's a really cool time to be doing indie comics and superheroes. It's always, I think, a very good mix.
Yeah, appreciate that. I've never, like I said, first superhero book I've ever written. I read a ton of superhero books, but I was a little worried about saturation but had a superhero book in me that I felt like would be a lot of fun to tell, and definitely glad I did it. And to your point, the sky's the limit in terms of what you can accomplish because you can do crossovers with other people's characters. You can kind of build the world with other people, which I think is really fun. So a lot of the guys I've talked to, we have kind of like the unspoken rule. It's like if we ever cross over, you can reprint like anything you want in your collection, and vice versa. So if we ever like do any crossovers, we own our own characters individually, but I have a standing reprint allow rule with anybody that wants to use Granite.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, I might reach out about that because I have the Scarlet Twilight sequels can bring in a lot of superheroes. Um,
Let's do it, man. I'd
yeah,
love
but
for you to take Granite and use her as you will. I love people playing with. That sounds funny, but I love
it
people
does sound
um,
weird. Yeah,
playing with my toys or playing with other people's toys. I think it's just a lot of fun. So from
yeah.
the backup feature perspective, I've got some other buddies that are going to do more of those different artists. Not Fritz exclusively. He'll focus more on like the main series, but have different artists interpret
Mhm.
Granite, and we can do anything from like silly to more mature, and hopefully stick those in the back of other people's comics.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like she's a pretty versatile character. I guess my vibe from seeing those pages and hearing you talk about it is it's kind of a little bit more of a mature version of your '80s Justice League International type setup, Booster Gold, Blue Beetle, all that stuff. And I think you can do that story, which looks like you're doing, where it's kind of sort of behind the scenes with her life. And I think she's just a cool looking hero on her own. You could do it. I guess what would probably be her more public persona, which is just I'm a hero. I'm out there doing good stuff. Kind of straightforward type superhero thing. So very cool stuff.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. I got a lot of inspiration from She-Hulk, the Burn Run when I read that years ago, and just had a lot of fun reading that. So yeah, if people like the heavy type superheroes, this is definitely a book to pick up.
Cool.
And
I've
that
never
Bob's
read that
cover,
run.
what's
Um,
that?
I've never read that run. That was about
Oh,
the time I would go to my family would go to church, we'd go to Burger King for breakfast, and then we'd go to the grocery store. My parents would just like drop me off at the newsstand. Our grocery store had like every comic, had like a pretty
mm,
decent sort of newsstand. So I had $5 to spend a week with my allowance. I'd sit there and probably read everything that came out in the hour or so it took for them to shop, and then just buy the two comics I liked the most. But I
mm.
think I've read a couple issues of She-Hulk from there. But that's one of those runs I keep meaning to find time to read, especially with that show coming out. People have been talking about how great that run was. And I'm a big John Byrne fan, so I'm surprised I haven't found my way to that yet.
His art is really good. It's spectacular in that run. He was at the peak of his career there, I feel like, and it still holds up really nicely. I just read some trades
Mhm.
the last year rereading it, and I thought it held up really well.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of his artwork. I still think my favorite period is sort of classic X-Men up to Man of Steel.
That was,
Which
yep, yep.
that's
He was
probably
very,
for me his peak.
yep,
In
yep.
fact, I was just reading an early DC post-crisis miniseries called Legends that he drew and Carl Kessel inked, and they're some of the sharpest, coolest panels I've ever seen in like an older superhero comic. So I'm a big fan of his. I even like his later stuff now, where it's a little messier. I know some people aren't as big a fan of that, but
Hmm.
I'm into it. So yeah, have to check
Yeah,
it out.
it's a different style. It definitely different, but I probably prefer his older style personally. And when he was on, I don't think he's one of the best ever in that
Yeah.
time period, and maybe in any time period. And his new style is good. It's a little messier and a little different, but people evolve and change
Mhm.
too over time.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's weird seeing his stuff. I guess like mid '80s and before. You look at Jim Lee and some of the guys that were popular directly afterwards. You see it. He was really that missing link between, I would say, like Neil Adams, and then, you know, Rob Liefeld, Jim Lee, all those guys. A few years
Yeah,
later. So
yeah.
always like I have this weird instinct where I want to put all these artists in like a timeline and like especially guys that are just pen and ink, and just see how styles evolve, what becomes popular, what different artists take from artists who become popular. And
Hmm.
Byrne is a big part of that sort of timeline.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So we'll get
Yeah,
back to these and talk a little bit more about the other
sure.
titles, but I want to jump over to John and Michelle. Hey, Michelle.
Hey.
Um, if you guys want to bring up your book and give us
Sure.
the quick pitch on Home Free,
All right, let
we can go
me
through that.
share screen. Let me see how. All right. Are you guys
Oh, there it
seeing
is.
it?
Sorry, it's in the bottom row there. All right, got you now.
There it is.
All right, cool. Yeah, so Home Free, this is the fourth issue in the Home Free series. Michelle and I, we've been working together for a long time. We have a previous series we did together called The Black Wall. This is like a loose sequel. It's more of a character sequel. As the main character in this, Sarah, was in the Black Wall. So this is kind of her 10 years after the events that happened in that story, and like how she's reacting to the world, and how far or not so far she's come along, and kind of how she's kind of reacting to basically like where does she want to go. She's kind of a tough character. She's had like a tough life. Um, Essentially, when she was younger, she was a prostitute, and she's just kind of been homeless and just has been through the ringer on bad things. So she's kind of been always running away from her past. And again, in this story, as America is also kind of reacting to the events of the story in the Black Wall, she's kind of trying to run away from her past and also the America that's to come, because it's a similar America to the one we live in. It's a very divided place, and she's basically on the road to Mexico in this. The story starts in issue one kind of much smaller, more of like a very personal kind of noir crime thing. And as each issue goes, it kind of expands into what this one is, which is a very action-based, where she's almost down to the Mexican border, but she's got to get through San Diego first. But San Diego has broken out into basically urban warfare. So that's where we are in this issue. So it was kind of a rambling explanation.
No,
but we've hit funding, which is awesome. We've unlocked a lot of our funding goals here, which we do this every issue where at each step, major, like 25%, 50%, 75, 100, everyone gets a sticker, a bookmark, postcard, and then a thank you in the back of the books. That's all been unlocked. We've got a lot of little digital rewards that we're doing just for the digital backers, so that they can get something too. Working on our stretch goals now, on our way to 100. Essentially, at that point, another artist I've worked with, Luigi, he's did a sketch of Sarah that we're just going to give to one lucky winner, randomly picked. And then we're basically doing backer goals for that. So 110 backers. Every 10 backers up to that, you'll basically get some free comics. And then if we hit 3,000, we'll also do another big stretch goal too. But salt in the air. So basically, the story in this one, Sarah has finally reached San Diego, trying to get to the Mexican border. But like I said, riots have broken loose and protests, and there's all this stuff going on everywhere, and just everything that possible is in her way, and she's just trying to get through it. But she also meets up with Tessa Brown right here, who is kind of in charge of this group called Eyes on Me, because a lot of these protests are a reaction to the current surveillance state in this America, which kind of exists in ours too. But it's kind of more come to a head in this one, where people are very concerned about it, and essentially, once they meet, she's just trying to help. Sarah's trying to help protect Tessa because there's lots of people after her. So we've got a couple different covers for this issue. This is our main cover by Michelle. She always does kick-ass covers. But we also have a variant of this one available. This one's basically that cover. It's going to be a virgin cover. Took the logo off. And the colors are by Miriam Yasser, which is kind of more, I don't know, portrait style. I feel like I love this one just because I feel like it's almost like the fires are just reflecting right onto her skin here. It just has such a good mood to it. Our really cool cover by Amalis Rosa. she did just such a badass cover. I actually put up the wrong cover. I just realized because it's supposed to have a little blood on him there. So, but this is one of the characters. We just call him Bat Boy in the comic. He's sort of a mystery. We're trying to keep him more of a mystery of like what he's all about, so our readers just so they can find more surprise with him and who he is within the story. This comic we've been doing this since I think 2021. We're gonna put the last issue out. It's a 5-issue series next year. And yeah, that's kind of the main stuff in this one.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah,
so this is
you.
black and white. The interiors are black and
Yeah,
white.
these are the interiors right here.
Oh, great. And Michelle, are you are you a traditional artist? Do you do digital? How do you go about creating these?
So I work digitally in Clip Studio, the program. Just kind of speeds up the process, no scanning and cleaning up images. It's all just very efficient that way.
Cool. Yeah, I love your I mean, you've got a great distribution of dark and light here. You're using the gray tones really well, which is really cool to see. I feel like a lot of books that are black and white really are like kind of feel like they ought to be color or were planned to be color, and it just didn't happen for whatever reason. This looks like I almost can't imagine this in color. It looks really nice, which is cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, our previous book was also black and white. Like, I don't know, me, Michelle and I just have like a crime comic relationship together. And I think we plan to do some more in the future. And just, maybe someday we'll do one in color, but I just love this black and white look, and she's so good at it. I just don't think we should change it if it's not broken. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, very cool. So I get kind of like a Purge vibe from this a little bit.
Yeah.
But can you take me through? You mentioned there was a previous series that kind of leads into this. Can you tell me? I think Black Wall is. Can you tell me what that was about?
Yeah, the Black Wall is the main character. Sarah's not the main character in that one. She plays a big role in it, but it's about this veteran named Hank. He's kind of been wandering after the current wars he just went through. Ends up back in Reno, Nevada, where after his mother's death, and just kind of decides to stay there. And this is kind of where the surveillance end of it kind of picks up. In that story, one of his another ex-Marine buddy of his is in charge of a surveillance company, and he hires Hank to do some work. And we kind of get the vibe from this other guy, Mark Stern, that he's a little bit nefarious. There's something else going on there. And as Hank does more and more of the work, you kind of see this plot start to unwind, which I don't want to go into details on it too much, but it kind of the story keeps on growing into basically Hank's trying to deal with some personal stuff in his own life, but almost ignoring these things going on around him. But the plot around him begins to grow as that's leading to this event that he is maybe involved in, maybe not involved in, and ends up the America in Home Free is the reaction to that event that happens in that story. And Sarah's story with Hank in that is like he meets her one night. She's like living in a homeless camp at that time. It's kind of and there's an incident with a security guard. She runs away. He's worried about her. He kind of becomes obsessed with finding her and helping her. Because his own home life, like with his estranged wife and daughter, is not great. So he kind of takes her into his life as his daughter, but he's just not built for that world, and does not do the greatest things for Sarah in that. So it's just like a crime story, but within like kind of a near future dystopia kind of scenario.
Yeah, I really like that. I mean, I think there's a lot of stuff like that people are really drawn to now. I mean, I guess things seem pretty tense and have for the last few years with everything that's happened. And I found myself with like the next August book I'm going to do is pretty much like it's all science fiction. It's out in space, but it's like kind of post-apocalyptic. And I feel like there's a lot of I don't know. I feel like sometimes we're just looking off a cliff, and we're a little fascinated with like, well, what if things do really go bad?
Right.
And obviously, a really dramatic place to take a story. It reveals so much about your characters. Putting them in those kind of spots, it's really fun. I also like
Yeah.
so. It sounds like between Blackwall and this, you're not necessarily. I like that you're not. It's not like a direct sequel. Like it starts right at the beginning. The end of the other story. You're
Mhm.
changing your main character. I think some time has maybe gone by, which is really cool to see. I like the loosely connected nature of stuff like that. I've seen a lot of books doing that lately, and I've kind of find I like that more than here's the next chapter and it's 5 minutes after the other one got finished.
Yeah. I think it's an interesting way of doing it. Like, actually, it's funny with this one. I'm actually writing a novella along with it that's offered up in the campaign called Stop Through. Let me get to that image. And that's actually also part of Sarah's life right here. It's kind of an in between part, but
Mhm.
again, it's not like it's not directly linked to either. It's its own story, and it's just kind of plops you kind of into the middle section of all this, and kind of where she was and what was happening in her life at that time, and kind of her decision, because the Black Wall takes place in Reno. Home Free starts in Coos Bay, Oregon, and it's kind of like the point in her life where she decides like what to go to Coos Bay and like what the events are that led her there. Um, so yeah, there's a little more. I love writing Sarah, I guess. So there's a little more of her life in this one too.
Yeah, I like, I mean, with my stuff, I'm always like, I kind of have my main books I want to do that are generally like 4 issues, but I always find myself thinking like, I want to do this other part of the character's life, but I don't want to do it in the same format. I want it to be like a 10, 15 issue run, or I want it to be like maybe even a short story or a novel with some illustrations. And I just, one of the coolest things I think we have going on with Kickstarter and crowdfunders in general is we don't necessarily, you can just put that as, you don't even have to necessarily make your own campaign for it. It can be an add-on. And there's just so many great outlets for, I guess, different formats. And it just lets you get into these worlds in a very different way. And I think more of an expansive way. So very cool to see.
Yeah.
And I'm a big fan of the of dystopian stuff, obviously. So very cool.
Cool. Yeah.
Hey, John. So Coos Bay, Oregon is a very specific place. Are you an Oregonian?
I'm not. I lived there for about 2015 until last year.
Oh,
So
okay.
I was up there for a couple of years. I'm actually in Reno. I'm actually an East Coaster. Originally from Connecticut, but kind of moved around a bunch. But are you in Oregon or?
Yeah, I've lived there a lot, and now I'm living in Vancouver, Washington, so right across the river.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, I was up in Portland for like 7 years.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Yeah, Coos Bay. I just wanted like a real quiet kind of area,
Yeah.
to start the story in with. We're a very unassuming kind of. I like setting my stories in places that not everyone else sets their stories in. It's just like with Reno. It's like I have like 3 comics in Reno and a bunch of stories in Reno now. It's like just like I feel like it's a very underused city that has a lot of some history, and just it's an interesting place to look at.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, there's a lot of character there without it being New York, LA, or even Las Vegas. I think you're right. It is kind of it's a very good substitute for something like that, but lets you, I mean, I always try to make the setting of my book a really big character kind of in its own right. So it's always fun to be creative with that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So do you have more stories? It sounds like you really like this character. Do you have more stuff planned down the line with her and this world in general?
I mean, I would say, like, if anything, she's somebody that I think Michelle and I could come back to, like, in, 10 years down the line. Let's see where she's at, what's going on, what's happening with Sarah. But nothing really planned. I do like all these stories. Like, let me just go to the other page so I can. For the last 2 issues before this one, I also wrote. They're down here. Novellas to go along with those. Like Inheritor of the Dead takes place after an event in issue 2, and then 4 Days with May is about a character from the first issue. So I've just kind of kept on going with this world, and Getting Back to Normal Down Here is another comic that I've done that's within this same universe. It's about a homeless guy named Raccoon that was in the Black Wall, and I kind of branched off and did another story. It's like my weird little universe of crime stories. I don't know how it came about, but it just kind of kept happening. So was not planned that way.
Well, it's cool. I mean, I've often found that the fact that like I was mentioning with some of my stories, I'm like, yeah, I would like to go off in this direction. And I think if I didn't have a way to say to myself, well, I'll do that down the line, it'll be a novel, it'll be something else, it'll be a different type of comic run, will like stop me from doing the really dumb thing and trying to fit that idea into the other story where it doesn't really work because I just liked it so much. And again, that just speaks to, I think, some of the really cool things we can do when we're creating these books by ourselves and crowdfunding them, because I don't think that works for a publisher, or at least most publishers, especially if it's some of your first books, or you're not a huge known quantity. It's great to just see people be able to go straight to the project they want to do, and do it, the way they want to do it. Like, it can be this combination of comics, other stuff. So really awesome to see.
Yeah.
What are some of your influences for this? I mentioned I kind of got a Purge vibe, but what's kind of some of the stuff that really inspired you, and you came up with this story based, kind of like inspired by it, I guess?
I mean, just the crime stuff alone is all like, I love crime films, and I love old film noir from the 50s and 40s. I'm like, I've owned so many of them. I just constantly watch them. So that's like a huge influence. I try to get that in like a little bit of the dialogue and who the characters are and everything, it's just like the classic style characters, but in our time, and then the story for this one really just came about, like you were saying, like it reflects the world we live in. Just like the Black Wall, when I wrote that, was like it was kind of the bridge between the Bush era and the Obama era, and like just all the surveillance that we were hearing about, and Edward Snowden and all that stuff, So it just that came out of just reflecting on the world that was coming about. And like the same with Home Free, it's like I wrote this in 2021, early 2021. So, it was just a reflection of what was going on in the world at that time. I think it's a very different story than, what was blowing up in 2020. But it's just like, hey, how far can we go with this, and what does that lead to when we've got these different sides of people just getting at each other's throats all the time and taking it into the streets, and I'm, so like, I feel like when you do stuff like this, it's, I'm not trying to preach, I'm not trying to tell anybody anything, but like, there is an aspect of it being a bit of a warning, I want to present a picture that when you read it, do you really want this? Like, is this really where we want to go? So yeah, I'd say like I'm always influenced by genre. I love genre stuff, and but it's always a reflection, obviously, of the world we live in. I think as most writers probably do that, but I really try to hone in on our times,
No, I do the same thing with my stuff. I mean, Scarlet Twilight, not as much. That's sort of a throwback, different world type idea. But August is like, it's the future, it's science fiction, it's kind of a Star Wars type universe. But, I kind of thought of it like the last 10, 15 years have just seemed like I wouldn't necessarily say decline, but like it's changed so much. We are so much at each other's throats. People don't listen to each other. And it's very hard to see how it would not get worse and worse and worse. And a lot of that in my mind has been like kind of a cautionary tale, exactly like you're saying. I kind of play in that same, I guess, playground a little bit. And it's one of those things that I think reflects society really well, but obviously it's just great to throw your characters into a situation like that.
Oh yeah.
Just how can I amp up the drama, make it 10 times worse than it would ever be in real life?
Right.
And then subject all our beloved characters to all these problems.
Right. Especially, it's interesting to write, like, Sarah, I'd be like driving the opposite direction. You know what I mean? She's driving headlong into it. So it's fun to kind of also just have a character that's going to be right in the middle of it all, where you would probably, I mean, personally, like I would not be in the middle of all the way she is, she's a lot tougher than I am.
So you mentioned that if this doesn't spoil anything, you mentioned that she's going towards some, I guess, pretty big event, or towards the danger at least. And you mentioned earlier that she was kind of running away from some things in her past. Is there some big dramatic events or a villain that she's kind of trying to get to? What's exactly her goal in sort of this journey she's taken to San Diego?
Her
If it's
goal
not too spoilery.
yeah, it's escape to Mexico. It's like kind of that old trope, you know what I mean? Got to get to the border. It's not really, she's not necessarily needs to get to the border to like hide or out or anything necessarily, but it's more like she's a runner. She's been running her whole life, and getting down to Mexico just seems like, maybe I just get to this other country and I can just disappear as a person down there, It's more, it's like her past and the world that's around her is like the villain in this. There's not necessarily like specific, people. It's more, on that kind of scale. It's more psychological, I would say.
Very cool. No, it sounds like a very rich world. I love that you kind of jump from character to character between your books. As far as process goes, do you guys collaborate in the story, or do you, like John, do you just write it, and Michelle, you just draw it, or do you kind of bounce ideas off each other, or kind of outline it out together, or what's the process there?
It depends on the story. This one particular, we kind of like, we were like, hey, we got to figure something out to do, because this was let's jump into this Kickstarter world, because before that we've only, Michelle had a Kickstarter previous to this story. But before that, we were just publishing as webcomics, kind of, and so we decided on this one. I write the scripts, for the most part, but depends on the project, because we have another project where Michelle actually wrote the script and I kind of worked it out, and that one was like a really, like, writing wise, true writing collaboration, but this one's more, I guess, just I basically write it, and and Michelle just takes that and brings everything else to it.
Yep.
Very cool. So, guys, I want to jump back over to ask a few more questions to CJ about Endless Hunt. But if you don't mind, first, I want to go through one thing I think is relevant to all of us who fulfill our own campaigns. Is we are on the Geek Collective Network, and we have a special there, where an affiliate link, where if you are getting Gemini mailers, which I think everybody should be doing. I've seen enough angry posts on Twitter about people being really upset that they got their book in some battered sort of thin mailer, but you can get Gemini. If you go to Gemini Comic Supply and enter the code Geek Collective 10, you can get 10% off your order, which at least when I was doing the campaigns on my own, every little bit helped. So definitely check that out. I'll throw that in the comments as well. And then I'd like to jump back over, CJ, to you, and ask you a few more questions about specifically Endless Hunt.
Could I ask a question real quick for CJ?
Yeah.
I was just curious about, you mentioned when you were talking before that you were kind of, I don't know if nervous, but about doing a superhero story, just because you felt like it could be a saturated market. What did you do to get over that? Or did you decide, like, let's just have fun with this and go full on, like, within the superhero world, do all the tropes and just have a good time with the comic? Or was it like more, how can I not fall into certain plot lines, or like, what did you do to like make it work for you?
Yeah, good question. I was actually hired to write a superhero for a company, and it fell through. And I was really just so disappointed that the story didn't, because it was my first time doing a superhero, and I was really excited about it. And I was like, what can I do with this now? It's done. The story's never going to come out. And then I was like, well, I still own the story, so it's still mine. I was never paid for the work. They decided not to go forward with it. So this is my story, and I'm just going to turn this into my own superhero. I'm not going to use their superhero. I'll just do my own thing with it. So I revamped it, moved some things around, and just was kind of like, the company that I was working with liked the pitch enough and liked the idea enough. I was like, well, there's something here then. There has to be. So I give it to an editor, and he read it and said, this is really fun and good, and kind of was like building me up a little bit, because I was feeling really down about it, because, it's never fun to lose work. And that was kind of like my first opportunity to get something bigger out into the market that fell through. And I was like, well, crap, and I don't know what I do now. So it was really kind of just getting over that first hurdle of being like, you know what, I can do this and do something on my own with this. And then just having an unbiased editor look through it and be like, this is good. Here's what you can do to improve upon it. That really just kind of got it going. And then my editor actually is Devin, who's the publisher of Epic Fantasy. And he said, I want to publish it. Let's do it as a Kickstarter. And I was like, awesome. So that was kind of it. I mean, I still kind of was hesitant, I think, just because of the saturation. But then I was like, I need to think like those guys did in the 90s at Image. Like, superheroes were saturated then, too, at DC and Marvel, and they knew they had something special. And I'm not, Todd McFarlane or anything, but I was like, like, if you feel like you have something special, you should just go forward with it and see what happens, and don't let fear hold you back.
Right. That's how I feel about zombies.
Answer, but
like as a kid, I've just loved zombies since I was like 8. You know what I mean? It's just been like something I've always wanted to do, but it's just like, there's so many zombie projects out there in comics and just everything, and it's one of those things. Unless I have a very special idea for it, I don't know if I could even attempt.
I did the same thing with zombies. I had a story, and I was like, I want to do a zombie story. And I was like, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to do an alien twist, and I'm going to have alien zombies, and I'm going to have something a little different. It's still going to be a zombie story, but I'm just going to turn it around and make it more of a sci-fi horror series. And that's what I did. And it came out from Band of Bards last year. So I'm happy I did it. It was
cool.
A lot of fun. Yeah. So
you guys know the story about the beginning of Walking Dead?
No.
So initially he wanted just to do The Walking Dead, pitched it to, I think, Jim Valentino at Image, and he said, that's not enough. I don't want to just have zombies. There's got to be a twist. And he said, okay, well, it's a sci-fi zombie story. They're going to be, the twist in issue 5 is it's going to be aliens causing all this. And then it got to be issue 5 and issue 6, and he's like, and it was doing well at that point, so he was off the hot seat. But he said, like, hey, when did the aliens show up? He's like, yeah, I was never going to do aliens. I just wanted to do a zombie story.
That's awesome. That's awesome. But yeah, Joe, I would say do it. Like, find that twist and put it out there. I've kind of learned now. It's like we might as well, not regret those things, and not let fear hold us back.
Right. I still haven't found the story yet, but someday.
Yeah. Right on.
See Joey Galvez in the chat. Hey Joey, says hi to everybody. But yeah, I think to what you said, I found that with Scarlet Twilight, even then it's very much a superhero story. It's got a twist on it. But I was reading like a lot of people giving advice for Kickstarter saying, don't just do another superhero book. But I'm like, I think that's what's cool about it. Most of these have a unique twist on them. And even when they don't, I like I said earlier, it takes me back to where there were like 20 new superhero universes. There was always something new to try. In general, I'd like some character in all of them. I really miss all this, like the Ultraverse and stuff like that, even though it's not super well regarded now. I just have such fond memories of that. And in fact, actually, if you're really looking to laugh at something from the 90s, there was a TV show they made of Nightman. It was one of the silliest of those that I think is on Tubi. That is some vintage 90s superhero garbage, but I think well worth seeing. But to change gears a little bit, Endless Hunt's a little bit more of a different genre. Tell us a little bit more about that. I think we talked about Granite a lot earlier, and wanted to see more about this and hear a little bit more. Kind of, this is a straight up fantasy story in a lot of ways, but obviously it does seem to have a twist on it as well.
Yeah. This was kind of a weird one that just kind of came about. I was between projects, and I was like, I just kind of had an idea of kind of like a psychological fantasy story where nothing is quite what it seems. You're reading it and you're like, oh, this seems like a pretty standard, like fair king is looking for his lost love, but then things just don't add up as he continues on through his journey. And things just start to kind of go awry. And he just starts sort of having visions and lacks an understanding of really what reality is. And it takes place in a bunch of different settings. And I was really happy that I included some bogmen and some giant sand crabs that Rio just really knocked out of the
I did
park.
not see those before. I like those.
Yeah, she's great. Yeah, Rio is just an
She did
incredible
the
artist.
eyes really good. We used to go hunt crabs on vacation when we go to the beach and just shine the light in their eyes, and then you could like freeze them, sort of pick them up from behind. But those eyes, God, they look just like I remember. Very.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
hate having to draw stuff like that, like animals. It's such a. I mean, it's fun. It's a challenge, but I'm terrible at it. So I'm always. I always admire when I see another artist take that challenge and do a really good job. Cool stuff.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and this was an interesting way. It kind of unfolded with a it. I knew how I wanted it to end, and I had this vision of how the story should end and how it should reveal itself, and then I just kind of built around that. And I don't know if you guys ever do that with your writing. I feel like there's so many different types of ways to create where you could like just do free form, just kind of do it more organically. Like when you're scripting, it's a little bit tougher, I feel like, to do in comic book format. But I've been seeing even people like Rom V talk about free form writing his comic scripts lately, and I was like, oh my god, like how do you do that when you have 22 pages or
Mhm.
whatever? But this one just started at the end, and then I was like, okay, how do I get there? And I just started kind of building around that.
Yeah, cool. So I pretty much get like scenes in my head before anything, and they don't always work together. But I kind of find if
Sure.
I just live with it for a while, my brain will start to lace those together and figure out some way to make it work, have the momentum be right, and generally just to like. My biggest problem is like there's some big plot hole I have to either explain away, which kind of sucks, or think
Mm.
of a cool way to do it, which is of course what you want to do. But yeah, when I finished one of my Scarlet Twilight miniseries, I thought I have nothing else to say about this character. I don't know where the story would go, and then I just kind of lived with it for a while, and I thought, oh wait, I could do this, and it all kind of came together. So
Yeah.
that's my method. It's probably not. I'm not a. I don't think of myself as a writer necessarily, or at least not by nature. But yeah, that's probably not the best way. But I kind of just let it ferment a while, and it kind of gets there.
I've done that too, though, where I saw a scene. We talked about the zombie story that I did. It literally started with me envisioning this um, female humanoid alien with her artificial intelligence companion, like walking
Mhm.
alone on this like desolate planet after their ship had crashed. I was like, "There's a story here. Like, there's something kind of cool here." And my writing partner at the time and I were thinking about it. And then, of course, it turned into a zombie story. But I didn't think that right away.
Mhm.
But I just really wanted to throw some zombies in there and then had kind of a zombie story in mind and kind of merge the two in that way. So I don't know, John or Michelle, if you guys do anything different when you create. I feel like there's no rule of thumb. Like you can kind of do whatever the hell you want, but
Yeah. Um, yeah, sometimes I have the endings like they're right there, like I
yeah,
know exactly where it's going, but oftentimes um yeah, I think most of the time actually, now that I think about it, I know where the story's going. It's just yeah, the journey getting there and making sure that there's nothing too convoluted going on or whatever, the plot holes and all that stuff. But um I feel like I always know where I'm going or just have a very decent idea of it.
do you find scenes change a little bit sometimes, like where you're like, oh, this is a better idea. Like I'm still doing it, I'm still moving forward, but I actually like this more than that. Or do you stick pretty tight to like your outline that you start initially?
Never. Yeah, they go. It goes all over the place and
Same.
keeps on
Yeah.
changing. There's outlines. Yeah, I'll hit a lot of the beats, but there's always changes in between. And like, yeah, like the story I'm running right now, it's got the same idea and the same flow that I was thinking, but it's ended up a lot of different places that I did not expect. So
Yeah, it
That's
evolved.
that's the fun of writing, though. I mean, sticking too close is kind of, you want it to free form a little bit because I feel like it's definitely been said before, but your characters in the story just kind of takes over at some point, and you just get into that mental flow with it, and it goes places that you wouldn't have expected. But that's the good thing, because if you're not expecting it, hopefully when people are reading it, that's the same things happening for them, where they're just like, I don't know where this is going. This is great. This is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, I was reading something from Garth Ennis, and he was talking about turning in plot outlines to publishers, and he's like, I fucking hate turning in plot outlines because it's never the same when I'm scripting it. He's like, I always start, and then I get a way better idea, I feel like, later on. So he's like, I feel like it's a waste of time for me to turn this in because it's completely different. He was talking about, I think he was talking about Batman Reptilian, and how he was like, the story was completely different from where he started to what we read as fans.
Right. I wonder if does that happen with art? Because I'm not an artist. I'm a stick figure kind of guy, so I have no idea. My stick figures always look like stick figures. But like, Michelle, do you ever, like, when you're writing or drawing a page, does it ever, like, you have a vision in your head? Does it ever, like, just kind of just turn into something else completely? Or
Oh yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, sometimes I'll think I know what I want, but once it starts going down, it's sometimes the flow of the page is just off, or you turn a character one way, or you just find a better way to make the page flow better. So yeah, being flexible, I think, is important creatively.
Yeah. I find sometimes I start drawing a panel and I had my sketch, I had like the way it was going to be laid out. And even if I just can't, if I don't get that drawing right the first time, like the face looks weird, even if I start over from that angle, it's just going to keep looking weird. I'm like, okay, this is going to have to be a different shot because that face is always going to look screwed up because I'm going to keep doing it the same way. And it just needs to be something different, or I'm going to redo this badly 12 times.
I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, it's like it just needs to be different now. I can't explain it. Joey's in the chat and asks, how do you stop yourself from changing the story too many times than letting it play out? So throw that out to you guys. What do you make I mean, we've talked about making some changes, but is there ever a point where you make yourself just like, all right, stop, I've got to go with this plot. I'm just gonna have to make this work, or is it always flexible and that sort of thing?
I don't know. Like, I guess, like, I'm not strict. When I go back and read it, I want to make sure that, the pacing and everything's very tight. But like, my outlines are very, very basic. I don't get real deep into them. And I guess I do kind of let the story just kind of flow and go places where I want. Like, with Home Free, it was actually originally 3 issues. But we expanded it to 5 issues because I had somebody look at it, and they kind of felt like there was more there, and I just didn't expand enough on it. So that was hard because I had to like fit in, like, it wasn't like extra stuff. It felt natural afterwards, it just felt really right what happened. But I had to like really kind of change the structure of the story a little bit to like fit this other stuff in and move a lot of things around. That was like the first time I've ever done that, and it was really a little difficult, but it was also very fun. Because it's a puzzle, and it's like just putting that puzzle together is what I think is most fun about writing, I guess.
Yeah, I've referred to my stories as puzzles a lot of times, especially in like the concept stage where I'm like, all right, this is going to be Golden Age comics meets Universal horror movies meets cyberpunk. And I kind of start to think about, okay, what's really cool about each of those things? What do people really like? Kind of get that in my head, or like, all right, I want to have these old buildings and really atmospheric sets. I need to have like a really cool Golden Age, costume design, stuff like that. And that almost drives a lot of my plot decisions too, because I'm like, all right, how much? And I'll take stuff into Excel even and just say, all right, I've got 22 cells here for each page. How much of this? I know what proportion I want of each thing in each issue, and I kind of I almost look at it like a recipe. I've got to have this much of this much of that. It can be over here, it can be over there, but I think the story I'm kind of selling. That's what I think people want to see from it, and really just try and use the best elements of kind of the toys I'm playing with. But I'm sorry, CJ, before I run out of time, Endless Hunt, really love the colors in this, and I love the like the fact that he's going from kingdom to kingdom. It has like a little bit of an adventure-y Conan vibe, obviously, and I think you're maybe playing with, is it reality, is it not? So he's it seems like it's a little bit dreamlike in terms of how he's getting from place to place here. But I really like that. I like that it's not as straightforward. I feel like a lot of fantasy has that sort of D&D feel where everything is very as creative as things can be with the elements and the kingdoms and the orcs and this and that. The storytelling is actually generally really straightforward. So it's nice to see kind of more impressionistic narrative within those worlds.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, really excited about it, and really happy that I got some great covers from Liana and Luana Vecchio. So just really, really awesome people that have some really good books in the direct market. I don't know how Liana Kangas does all the work that they do. It's pretty crazy, like just churning out a crazy amount of content. Always has an interior project. Always has a ton of covers.
Mm-hmm. How did you come to? I mean, you got some pretty big names doing covers here. How did you get in contact with them and get them to work on these?
I am never opposed to emailing or DMing somebody. I'm like, the worst they can say is I'm busy or no, or they just don't like the idea. Like I haven't had that happen, I think, more than once, where somebody's like, I'm not really into this type of story or whatever, but it's really just kind of a scheduling thing. Then if you can make it work. So I luckily got in front of Liana and Luana really early and said, I don't need it until July. And I think I outreached to them probably 4 months before that, and it all worked out. So I always, anytime you can think of an artist that you probably want to cover, I would say just try to make sure it's not like a rush or anything. Like try to give them time, because they're not like, they can't churn out something like this just like overnight. It takes some time. But yeah, I'm never opposed to outreaching to somebody if to see if I can partner with them. Like I've got a list of 100 artists that I want to try to work with.
Same. I didn't really get a chance to do it, but I wanted to do variant covers and commission some of them for Scarlet Twilight. At least I had a list of all tons of pros I was hoping to reach out to, and then finally decided that I don't think I have the budget for commissioning anything. But yeah, I mean, that's a great, I think you said it perfectly. It's never, if you're polite, if you're considerate of people's time, I don't think it hurts to reach out and ask people, no matter who they are. So
yeah, and I'm not a name at all. I don't think I've had a couple things in the direct market, and neither one of them were like, who are you? And they've done big books. They're like, I think Bolero and Lovesick are two of the best Image comics that have come out in the past 5 years. And Luana worked on both of them. So she could have easily said no, but she wanted to do it.
Yeah. And I think people are generally, especially in comics, are generally, I think I saw another creator talking a while ago about some stuff on Twitter, and he said, like, we all have a ton in common just by nature of being in this business, more or less, into this hobby and doing these things. And it's important, obviously, to be polite, have some kind of business etiquette about it. But people generally want to help each other out, which is something I found and really, really liked about doing this. I remember when I was just banging my head against the wall, putting together pitches, sending them to publishers, not hearing back or getting rejections. And the fact that we have this chance to crowdfund things, reach out to fans, reach out to other creators, and the community that's kind of cropped up around it has been really awesome. I feel so lucky to be doing books at this time.
Yeah,
for real. Crowdfunding is great.
Oh, sorry, John.
Oh, you're right. I was just agreeing.
Yeah, same. Yeah, never been a better time to be a fan. There's so much content out there.
Yeah, you can really find a book that's almost like, I'm thinking genre, narrative bending fantasy. Well, there you go. There really is something for everybody, and it's cool to see. And I love that, obviously in crowdfunding, you can test your idea out. You don't have to do an entire comic invest, whether that's time or, if you're doing it yourself, it's your time. If you're commissioning it, it's your money. You can do 5 pages, see what people think. And that's a huge barrier to entry that you can, work with pretty practically, I think, as a creator. So awesome to see. Well, we're coming up on an hour. I'm going to do a quick recap of everybody's campaign, and I'll let you guys kind of give me the quick elevator pitch. CJ, we'll start with you. Give us the quick pitch just to wrap up here. I'm going to throw the link in the comments one more time for anybody that's watching now or later. You have a few more days to check this out. And CJ.
Yeah, appreciate it. So just 71 hours left on the Epic Fantasy 3-in-1 Kickstarter, 2 superhero books, 1 fantasy comic from Devin Arscott's Epic Fantasy line. We are very close, $399 away. Thought we were not going to get anywhere near there, but we've really had a big rally the last couple of days. So really appreciate the community getting behind the comics, and a lot of great content in there. So hopefully more people will pick it up, but I'm feeling really optimistic about it.
Awesome. Michelle and
John. On all the skull imagery in your comic alone. I love skulls. So
cool. Awesome. So Michelle and John, give us the quick recap on Home Free.
Yeah, Home Free. If you like crime comics, grindhouse action, intense drama, all that, very personal stories, just taking place in explosive worlds. Here comes my cat. Watch out. You're gonna dig this comic. It gets pretty intense at times. It's suspenseful. It's like a noir road trip through the country. We go from Oregon all the way down to San Diego. All the different comics kind of have their own feel to them. Like the first one starts off with a very personal crime story kind of deal. Then we go into more of an exploitation car chase thing. Then we jump over into the desert for more of a noir Western kind of deal. And now we're down in San Diego where just the world is exploding and Sarah has to figure out yet another problem to get through. So just that sounds like your thing. Check us out. We're live for 5 more days, I think. And we're funded, but there's lots of cool stuff that we're going to add to the campaign, and lots of cool stuff you can get already. So stop on by.
Perfect. Sounds great. So I'm going to say one more time, we have that deal with Geek Collective where if you're getting your Gemini mailers ordered, use that code Geek Collective 10 and you can get 10% off. I wish I knew about that when I was buying my Gemini mailers last time, because it would have helped. My comic, August Purgatory Underground, is live on Zoop now, and you can check that out for 7 more days. We kind of extended the campaign a little bit, and I have a free preview and a link to the campaign at the link tree that I just threw in the chat. But definitely, if you're watching this now, if you're going to watch this the next few days, or you're listening to the audio version, jump over to Kickstarter, look for Home Free, look for 3 one-shot comics. Have a couple days left. These are great books, really awesome looking stuff. And guys, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
It was great having you here. All right, that does it for us this week. We're going to move the show to Saturdays next week, and we have some great creators lined up. So hopefully we'll see everybody that's watching again, and hope everybody has a great week. Thanks again, guys.
Thanks.